people on China's Loess Plateau were among the earliest adopters of settled agriculture. But their history also illustrates the impact that human beings have had on the earth. Exactly what causes a place that was once bountiful to become so degraded?
What has happened here is that originally you had a complete vegetation cover with a fully intact hydrocycle. All the rainfall that fell down stayed where it was initially. It slowly infiltrated into the ground, was absorbed by the root system, went into the groundwater, and eventually drained into the Yellow River. As the vegetation cover was removed gradually, the runoff increased dramatically to the point where now when it rains, 95% of the water immediately is lost. And this is the reason why this area is so dry, why the rainfall has been decreased, why the vegetation cover can hardly be sustained right now, because everything is so dried up.
The consequences of this are felt by everyone. The storms cause disruptions for cities like Beijing and contribute to climate change by allowing sunlight to penetrate but trapping the heat. What started as a tiny trickle when settled agriculture began, over time increased until it became a raging torrent. Without normal infiltration, it often meant that there was drought in the rest of the year. And with drought came famine. Although for many centuries the plateau has been considered almost as a desert, the fact is that the region receives, on average, between 250 and 800 millimeters of rainfall per year, sufficient at the low end for functional grasslands, and at the high end even for climax forest ecosystems. A team of Chinese and foreign experts was assembled in the mid-1990s to design and implement the Loess Plateau Watershed Rehabilitation Project. In the hilly land, the experts determined that any slope over 25 degrees was unsuitable for agriculture because whatever could be produced on this land would be worth less than the ecosystem function that had been lost. This led the authorities to designate areas where farming was forbidden, where the land was allowed to return to a more natural state. By analyzing the few more successful villages, the team determined that several traditional practices would have to end. New policies were formulated, banning tree cutting, planting on hillsides, and the free ranging of goats and sheep. An early part of the project was to build small dams that could capture and hold the rainwater during the rainy season. Without this measure, the water would have continued to run off in floods, taking yet more topsoil with it. The people's participation became the central part of the project. The leaders explained the policies, and the people discussed how this would affect them. And first among them was land use rights.
If the farmers build a terrace and they don't own that terrace, they will not take care of it, they will not invest in the terrace, and it will wash out the first time there is a major thunderstorm, and it's a failure. Village by village, every household in this project has received a long-term land use contract for every single piece that was invested in this project. Every terrace that you see, every tree planting area is contracted to a household, and they are responsible for it. That is the first part of sustainability. And it's an absolute keeper.
Incomes on the plateau have steadily risen, and the expectations of the people have as well. Reversing many generations of decline, now on the Loess Plateau, the people don't think that their lives are just going to grow worse. They believe and are preparing for a better life.
咱们一生中能住这么个砖房就算可以的了。结果没有想到，在这10年的又一个变化，就像这种前10年盖起的房已经又不行了，赶不上现在的时代了。
我们从这几年经济发展比较快，一个呢就是产业结构调整，比如说我们把黄坡、黄山治理成这个经济田，这也就增加了这个群众的收入。
By bringing effective administration to remote areas, the project helped to introduce modern management systems to communities that had relied on unsustainable traditions for generations. This addition was one more step that helped the people toward a sustainable future. In the Loess Plateau, the local people themselves determined the division, and entire communities participated to ensure that the land was fairly divided. The Loess Plateau Rehabilitation Project planted a very large number of trees. The power of nature to restore itself was apparent and awe-inspiring. This is Hojago village when we first visited. And this is the same valley 10 years later. The people of the Loess Plateau are proving that it is possible to rehabilitate large-scale damaged ecosystems, including returning ecosystem function that had been lost over broad areas and long periods of time. This is of enormous significance, as it is exactly the knowledge that is needed to repair ecological damage on a planetary scale.